it's okay. You're in a situation where you can't control much. So rather than trying to hold on as much as you can to the things you can control, which, can lead to almost neurotic behavior. And I've definitely recognized that in myself, sort of running around the house aimlessly, restlessly. Rather than doing that is, just try to, at least for a moment, to just accept the things the way they are.
This is CrisisCast 2020 with me, Toby Goodman, a podcast where I get timely wisdom from experts in life and business. These guests will answer my 5 questions, sharing wisdom and insights to help you and me get through this global shitstorm. Today on CrisisCast, I take you to Amsterdam for a chat with Sander Den Boer, where lockdown seems to be fairly relaxed compared to the UK and much of the rest of the world. We talk mental health, dog ownership and Saas. In case you're unaware, Saas, S-A-A-S, stands for Software as a Service. You know, the kind of software you find online and pay a subscription. So think apps. Sander uses his skills to help the nerds behind these products sell their stuff to those who need it most. So here's my chat with my European neighbour, Sander. Before we start the show, I have something for you if you identify as pod curious. It's perfect for you if you're an expert, consultant or business owner. Maybe you're wondering if podcasting is worth the effort, especially now, or perhaps you've tried podcasting in the past but have been disappointed with the results. In this free guide, Podstar, I'll share the exact 7 steps we use to help publish over 2,000 podcasts each month. To get instant access, go to podcastnetworksolutions.com. Sander, welcome to CrisisCast 2020. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much for having me.
So you're in Amsterdam.
Yes.
Tell me about your experience on a local level of what's been going on there. We're now at the 8th of May.
Yeah, well, my personal view, at least, is that it's been a bit less messy, perhaps, than in some other countries. When it kind of started, when the lockdown was announced, people kind of complied. At first, there was a lot of panic buying and things like that, but that kind of went away relatively quickly. My feeling is that people got used to the new sort of situation fairly quickly. And one of the things that maybe helped as well is that we never went into a full-on lockdown here. So it's not like in Spain and so on that you weren't allowed out at all. You could go for walks in the park or, on the beach if you lived close to the beach and things like that. So there were a lot of people, exercising and, the shops never really closed. So they just had to introduce measures quite quickly to limit the number of people in shops and things like that. But I think apart from the first week or so when it was, or 2 maybe, when it was a bit unclear, what are the rules exactly? That's how it kind of started, I think. People kind of getting used to something new. No one liked it. But I didn't feel a sense of, huge panic either. Which I guess was also helped by then gradually the number of cases, first increasing, of course, but then the increase kind of started slowing down over the few weeks after that. So now we're at a point where, intensive care units and hospitals were never really overwhelmed. They're slowly reopening things now, basically.
On a personal level, I imagine a lot of your work is online anyway, but how's it affected your personal life?
My work is very much online based. I also mostly work from home or from, whatever coffee shop I think is suitable for that moment. So in that way, in that sense, not much actually changed. I just continued to work from home and, try to help my clients as best as I could. However, at the same time, what's really important, I think, if you do work from home most of the time, is that you need to do things outside the house as well. And that, of course, was pretty much taken away, apart from, daily walk in the park with the dogs. That's really affected me. And I think, for everyone. So people are asking me, how people who normally don't work from home all the time, they're asking me, how do you do it? How do you survive? I can't work from home all the time. It's killing me. And then I have to remind them, that it's not actually, this isn't sort of my normal situation either. Normally I do go out of my way to get out of the house, go to the gym, go see friends, go to see, concerts, whatever, things like that. Yeah, just to kind of keep yourself sane and keep yourself healthy, basically.
Yeah, the conversation has definitely shifted from, how are we going to do this online, to people in the last few weeks having to find out how to do it online. And those conversations about, hold on, what Zoom have now stopped, because everyone knows what Zoom is, and has quickly shifted, unless you're a doctor or a carer or a nurse or whatever, and you're dealing with the actual virus, has shifted to more of a mental health conversation, I think. So it's interesting to have that chat. I've had a number of conversations with people who are quite comfortable working remotely, and now we're talking about those survival techniques. And I certainly found that, as someone who's been doing a lot of remote work, it's just escaping, not being able to escape, and not knowing that you can escape to your cafe of choice, right? With good aircon.
Absolutely.
And just having a meaningless conversation with someone at a counter, because otherwise you can just be completely alone, right?
Absolutely. And that's exactly that kind of, escaping is also what people, to some extent, I think, do when they go to the office. If they work at a, sort of more traditional office setting, they sort of have their work, I suppose, their work life, their work persona, and their home life and home persona. So they can kind of escape, either work or home by going home or by going to work. And that whole mechanism doesn't exist anymore. You can't escape, and you're kind of stuck with yourself and with your own thoughts. I mean, I guess some people are stuck with, maybe having lots of kids or family, or, having a really full house. Other people have, the opposite. If you live by yourself, then you have a very empty house. And in any case, there's nowhere to go, and you have to kind of deal with it yourself. Deal with your own thoughts and your own feelings, and so on.
Do you live alone, or with dogs, or?
I live with my girlfriend and 2 dogs and 2 cats at the moment. We usually just have one, but there's an additional cat that we temporarily needed to take in, which is a whole different story.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so we have a fairly full house. The dogs do tend to drive us crazy because we're home all the time. Yeah, again, we can't sort of escape each other. But yeah, apart from that, it's. I still would prefer this situation to living alone and being alone most of the time.
100% agree. So the questions I've been asking at this point have been, how we're going to get through this. It appears like we are now getting through this, but combining that with what does the other side look like, and interested to know what your perspective is on all of that stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are getting through it. And I think one of the big reasons is because we just have no choice. So people, at some point, I guess you go through this phase of denial, and at the start you think, oh, it won't be as bad, just a few weeks of lockdown and we can get back to normal. Then it transpired that was not realistic, and that this situation will be with us for months, if not years, to come. And that's an interesting point, because that's where people really start realizing, okay, we actually need to find a way to deal with this now in the short run, when we're still pretty much fully locked down, we can't really travel anywhere, and so on. And over the next, sort of in the longer term, and some people say until, some kind of mass vaccination is possible, then we need to find ways to do this. And obviously, governments and trying to set kind of frameworks. But what I'm also really interested in is how do you how do you do that at a personal level for yourself, for your work, for your business, for your family, and things like that. And I think then that goes, to me, it really goes back to what we were just saying, with the distractions, because I feel like a lot of people are running into stuff sort of mentally that they otherwise wouldn't necessarily run into, because they're not, their lives are less busy. They spend more time maybe with themselves or with their family, and there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. So, and you see people kind of taking up all kinds of things, like, oh, we should take up courses, we should go and bake bread and things like that. And I think that's all valid, of course. But then at the same time, existential crisis looms, and people think, oh, but then I have to pressure myself into doing all these kinds of courses, and why are we doing all of this anyway? And then it comes down to mental resilience and kind of being able to just sit with yourself and your thoughts and your feelings, kind of, maybe even meditative way, or however you want to call it, and kind of seeing what comes up. And I think that's because the reaction is, the situation is one where we have no control. We're just not in control. We don't even have the illusion of control. We can't tell ourselves stories like everyone kind of does, like, oh yeah, but I'll be fine, and I'll be successful in my business or my work, or I'll be successful in my personal life because we're, I don't know, buying a house, we're getting married, we're having kids, and you can still do some of those things to some degree, but for a lot of people, that all of that has kind of stopped or been put on hold. So there's no more narrative we can really tell ourselves about external things in our life. So we have to kind of turn inwards a bit more, and maybe try to tell ourselves a new story about, it's okay that the things are the way they are, and we just have to kind of accept that it's not going to be the same as it was before.
So do you have specific things that you started to do as a result? You're obviously aware that you don't want to go into learning a new language maybe full on, but have you changed things? Because, as someone who works at home a lot as well, I take it for granted that I can just go out and go down to the shops for an hour or so just to walk around somewhere, even if don't have any intent to do anything. That's there normally for me, and now it isn't. So I've been aware of that. So when you take a break, what happens? Because when I take a break, I just have to play a game or deal with a kid, right? But you're not in that situation. So outside of caring for your pets and speaking with your partner, what is there anything else you've discovered because you've been limited and constrained?
Yeah, it's it's kind of it's what we said before, kind of in a way, nothing has changed for me, in a very direct sense of the word, but at the same time, those the gaps or the distractions are no longer there. So I suppose what I've been trying to do more is just kind of sitting around and accepting. Definitely have days where that's hard. I'll be looking for distractions, but the highest level of distraction at the moment. We're allowed to go on random walks here, so then I might just take myself out for a walk or a little bike ride. I've also had to take my exercise routines, sort of take them home. So I'm, can't go to the gym. So trying to do a bit of exercise at home. But I guess what I've realized here is that, how much you kind of depend on these sort of external things, just a gym you can go to, or a cafe you can go to just to grab a coffee and get a different perspective on things. So I suppose I try to, as much as I can, recreate those things at home, make myself initial, coffee, cup of tea, sit in the garden, do some exercise at home. Try to do more reading, of all kinds of books that, again, on the one hand, to kind of distract myself, take my mind off of things, but also, maybe some books that have maybe slightly more, spiritual edge to them, if you will, where the message is, it's okay. You're in a situation where you can't control much. So rather than trying to hold on as much as you can to the things you can control, which, can lead to sort of almost neurotic behavior. And I've definitely recognized that in myself, sort of running around the house aimlessly, restlessly. Rather than doing that is, just try to, at least for a moment, to just accept the things the way they are. You might not be able to go out. That contract with the client might be delayed or might never happen. Getting new business might be more difficult for a while. And that, in a sense, is freeing as well. So, the constraints we put up, or the constraints we feel, are largely put up by ourselves in our mind. And that is something that I've for sure noticed very, very clearly, that, you can feel completely differently. As we were chatting just now before recording, you could have 2 days that look pretty much exactly the same. You do the same things, you work, you walk the dog, you have a cup of coffee, and you feel completely different. One day you feel kind of relaxed and in control. The next day you feel, restless, out of control. You feel like, time is slipping through your hands and you don't know what to do. So when I feel like that, if I have a moment of clarity, I do try to kind of center myself, maybe do a little breathing exercise or something like that. So I haven't done, those are things I've done. I did already do previously, but maybe I'm doing more of now that, there's nowhere to run, there's no way to, or it's much harder to distract yourself.
Yeah, I think we're all just more conscious of what we're doing generally, right? That is good. I think that is good. So when it comes to working, you've got your own business, specifically help SaaS companies sell their stuff. How are you helping them right now? What's been your approach with that?
Well, so that there's sort of broadly speaking, two kinds of clients at the moment. There's the ones who have been hit quite badly, and there's the ones who haven't been hit very badly at all. So it depends a bit on, the kind of industry they work in and things like that. So obviously businesses that cater to, the hospitality industry and things like that, they're having a massively difficult time, just like the hospitality industry itself. But I'm also seeing, clients who work in other industries like, supply chain management, e-commerce, things like that. They are actually, they seem to be doing quite well, and there's definitely scope for them to, expand their business. So I'm trying to. So for the people who are for whom demand hasn't dried up, I've been creating a lot of funnels with them, trying to focus on sustaining their business and, growing it as well. Although, the message has shifted a little bit in terms of, how you can market SaaS at the moment. It used to be that, the message was everything is geared to growth. Will help you grow your business. You'll work more efficiently. You'll sell more efficiently. Will help your whoever it is, your salespeople sell more. Will help your operations people be more efficient, and so on. Which ultimately leads to growth. Now, everyone understands that even for the businesses that are still doing well, focusing on growth at the moment is, it just doesn't really rhyme with a lot of companies. Doesn't really rhyme with the general mood, I would say. So the marketing's been shifting a little bit in direction of creating stability and creating and kind of holding on to what you have. Maybe growing a little bit, but especially creating a stable base with your existing customers, and that kind of messaging is also what the companies that have been that are struggling a little bit more. So I'm focusing with them. I'm kind of focusing more on retention. So retention's always been important in SaaS, obviously, because it's a subscription model. Some business owners are less affected at the moment because they run on yearly subscriptions or 2 yearly even. So their cash flow is sort of good for the moment, at least. But a lot of businesses have monthly subscriptions that can be cancelled at a moment's notice, more or less. So I'm kind of helping my clients there to see opportunities to kind of market to their existing clients more, because that, for a lot of businesses, that hasn't been a huge focus in the past few years, because business has been good, the economy has been going well. So what a lot of businesses have been doing is just focus on new clients, new business, generating leads and turning them into customers. So that's what I've been doing a lot past few years. And now you can see that's kind of shifting to, well, let's try and keep those existing customers. And of course, most companies have people who take care of that anyway on the sales side, with account managers, customer success managers, and so on. But less so on the marketing side. Marketing has been more focused on getting new business in the past, and now it's slowly shifting to trying to help your existing customers basically be more successful and show as a SaaS business that you can still, that it makes sense for them. You can generate a positive ROI for them just based on their current, on what they're doing right now. And not only that, but you're also, my view is that as a SaaS business, you're not just providing a service in terms of you're providing a piece of software, but you're also providing a lot around that. So you might be providing, obviously guides, and you're providing them with manuals and help. So both in terms of, an in-person salesperson that talks to them and says, here, let me show you how to do what you want to do, but also, a lot of content, a lot of, ideas on how to succeed in their business more broadly, and how, specific SaaS tools can help them with that. And, the industry is starting to see that there's absolutely no reason why doing this should be limited to people who aren't your customers yet. You can very much do that with people who are already your customers, and effectively, if kind of make sure that fewer of your customers down the line say, okay, we don't have budget for this anymore. This isn't our priority anymore, and then leave your service.
I think it's really tough, to do outbound marketing in the best of times, really. I mean, it's doable, of course, but, that retention stuff is just so key. It's been something that's driven any success that I've had in the past. And that stuff leads to referral anyway. Like, it doesn't feel appropriate to be pushing out offers to people who don't know who you are right now. But it does feel appropriate to say what you're doing with us is still relevant. And this is why. And we're going to support you. So, like, definitely one of the first things that we did was start paying attention to the customers who we've got right now. like close attention because we didn't want them to look at us and think, okay, well, maybe we don't need this, you know. And I suppose we're lucky that we have with the podcasting, you know, it's a great time to be podcasting because a lot of people who maybe were going out and doing speaking engagements are not doing that now, or whatever it might be. So we're still giving them that platform and they can do it remotely. Equally, though, you know, the hospitality sector that's been hit super hard, and the food and stuff. I have seen some great things happen. I'm not sure if I mentioned this on another show, but there was an Indian restaurant in the UK. We're all big fans of Indian food. There was an Indian restaurant that opened 2 days before lockdown happened, and they shifted straight away to safe pickup, contactless payment, all of this stuff. And then they started giving away massive discounts to the carers in the community and stuff like that. So they've actually been able to have a very successful brand new launch of a business because they changed their offer to something that was relevant for today. And they showed that they were looking out for the community. So I think I saw yesterday as well, there's a company who are starting to sell what they're calling the original social distancing panel or something. So they're putting in basically screens that they can section off restaurants with and potentially open plan offices, make them safer. And that's an opportunity. You know, you could say it was opportunistic, but you know, I don't think it is in a negative way. I think that's someone who's got who's had a business before, clearly, with the ability to make things, and they've aligned it with what people are thinking about. I think what will be interesting with that one, when I saw it, because I thought, oh, that's really good. And as far as the UK is concerned, there's not been any official guidelines yet on what is and isn't acceptable. So I hope for their sake that it's what they're making and trying to sell is going to be accepted within the guidelines of the country, right? So you got to kind of find out what's going to happen. So I'm interested to know. You know, you're a switched on guy involved in some good communities. So I'm wondering if what you've seen that's impressed you, or you know, since this started, what kind of innovation have you seen and behaviour that you've seen that has impressed you or surprised you in a negative way? I don't know. Either, both.
Yeah, well, I've been kind of thinking about that, and I mean, there's been some negative things as well in terms of well, you know, I mean, you mentioned behavior. You know, I think overall it's a kind of thing where, you know, 5% or something of the people are actually, you know, really are trying to make this work, are really trying to you know, kind of give each other space in the road, be kind of considerate. And kind of, you know, really trying to understand, you know, what can I do? What shouldn't I do? Okay, I can't visit, you know, elderly parents or grandparents and things like that. But, you know, I've been seeing a lot of people sort of walking up to other people's houses and then chatting to them through the window or being on the phone to other people. And, you know, the one person's inside, the other person's outside. Some people are showing their babies to each other and things like that through the window. And I thought, that's quite nice, you know. And I think that kind of thing is really nice. It's quite heartwarming to see. Other people, you know, seem to take the situation as an opportunity to you know, to unfortunately be slightly impolite, boss people around, you know, shout at them if they think they're doing things incorrectly, you know, if they're not keeping enough distance or something like that, you know. So I've definitely been shouted at, you know, just on the road or in the park for no particular reason. So just puts people on edge, I suppose. So it brings that side out of people as well, unfortunately.
There's so much natural behavior though, isn't there? There's so much like being in a shop and just, you know, just squeezing past someone is such a natural thing to do. And I don't think I've done it, but I've seen people do it and I've seen that. I've not been involved in either of those things. There's a canal just right near me and it's narrow, right? So that's a strange thing, the etiquette of passing someone. You have to kind of jump into a bush to make sure that you're far away from them. So I'm trying not to do it. And what's happened is that the people who live on the boats in that canal have now put up signs outside their boats because they're getting freaked out with runners coughing and spluttering as they run past and stuff. So I kind of understand why people are on edge with that. And you think, part of me is thinking, well, what is it they don't get? And the other part of me is just thinking, oh God, of course, until the other week, this was totally fine. Like what they were doing is totally fine. And if someone's in their own head thinking about their own stuff, then it's that I don't think they meant to, I don't think they meant to squeeze past me or whatever it might be. So I think we've got to be a bit careful about that as well,
Yeah, absolutely. You're kind of rewriting some of the social rules and things like that, how to behave in public, and what is acceptable, what isn't. It's definitely, if anything, an interesting, view into how people work, and and in terms of sort of from a business perspective. I mean, because you mentioned the hospitality and restaurant business earlier, and what we're seeing here is also people are the shops never really officially were forced to close, but a lot of them did anyway, because big closed shops and things like that, they just felt they couldn't responsibly cater to shoppers and so on. So now that's all slowly being reopened, and companies who kind of follow that kind of footfall and stuff like that, they're saying we're at 40% footfall of where things used to be and things like that. So to me, it really shows that in a lot of industries, the things that were going on, and especially in retail, things that were going on, trends that we were seeing are just going to be accelerated. So, a lot of people are warning for, and we're already warning for the demise of the high street and things like that. That's likely to just, continue, except for probably the, savvy entrepreneurs who kind of understand what people are looking for. People are already looking for, an experience. You don't just go to the shop to buy something. It's a day out. It's an experience, and so on.
That's right. And we've been talking about the demise of the high street for 20 or 30 years now. This is something that is a constant, certainly in the UK, and I imagine where you are, Amazon comes along and all of that. But I think there might be a rise of the high street once we're safe, right? Like once there's a vaccine and all of that. I think that because I think people will really realize that when they've been completely unable to have that social experience as part of their shopping, maybe we will find that certain things that were more online since Amazon and all of that stuff, maybe we'll find more stuff, more value in having a conversation with someone who can recommend, what product to buy and all of that with a human, because we just missed having conversations with people in a location.
Absolutely.
So maybe not, maybe it won't all be cafes and hairdressers, which seems to be most high streets.
It'll probably be a mix of all of those things. Your cafes, hairdressers, and shops. I mean, there's another example I was reading about just last week, I think, from Suit Supply, which is a Dutch suit selling company, suit retailer. And, their business model is, somewhat, not the cheapest, but definitely affordable suits. And they also have, they also tailor them. So the idea is really for you to go in, and it's not so, I mean, they have, obviously they have online shop and everything, but it's much more of an offline model where you go in, you get measured and so on, just like, sort of traditional tailor. So they've been looking at ways to go around this. And, a very simple solution they found is to come up with a custom-made sort of plastic kind of screen with gaps where then, whoever's sort of measuring someone can kind of so the client, the customer, and the shop person stand on opposite side of the screen, and then the whoever's measuring the customer can shove their hands through a gap, measure them, and do whatever they need to do without so that they're close to each other, but they have a screen between them, and they can still do whatever they need to do. So I see, and that's obviously a very low tech solution, but I think technology until we're safe, and then, we can look at very different things again. But until, that moment happens, I think technology has a huge role to play. And retailers really can benefit from combining, just putting a few screens and a few iPads here and there, making sure that there's enough, ways to wash your hands, sanitize your hands, and things like that. So people can kind of combine a, more online experience, looking at products on a screen, with, actually talking to someone face to face in a shop. I think there's a lot of opportunities there, and that'll probably just get sped up. I guess a few businesses will probably go under in the next few months, but a few other ones, like that Indian restaurant that you mentioned, are probably really set to become the next generation of successful retailers and successful hospitality businesses, food service businesses.
Yeah, agreed. Well, look, Sander, thanks so much for your time. It's been great listening to your experience and where you are. And I appreciate your honesty and in talking about the personal challenges of kind of getting through it. But yeah, I think the head game is an important one at this stage of the game. And all being well, I will speak to you soon. And thank you very much for joining us.
Great. Thank you very much, Toby. Speak soon.
Cheers, man. This episode of CrisisCast 2020 was produced by me in London and Kate Astrakhan in Michigan, with artwork by Ryan Field and sound design by Lee Turner. CrisisCast 2020 is a production from Podcast Network Solutions, a full-service podcast production company who are ready to help you plan, record, produce and promote your message with podcasting. To find out more and grab your copy of Podstar if you're feeling pod curious, visit us at podcastnetworksolutions.com.